It's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and it is episode 495. We're getting close to that 500 episode mark. It's Friday, the 18th of July, 2025. Welcome to the show. It's the middle of summer, or I guess the middle of winter in Australia. So I don't know. I'm just in this like submarine space, so I don't go out. I mean, what would I do? We've got existential dread, MCP, Cloudflare, ESxi, QR codes, Salt Typhoon, Aaran Leyland, and more on this episode of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. Imagine a world where every threat, ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits, is stopped before it can even begin. ThreatLocker makes that world a reality with a zero-trust approach to cybersecurity. By giving you granular control on every executable that can happen in your environment, ThreatLocker protects your business around the clock. No more guessing, no more gaps, just rock-solid protection that keeps your operations running smoothly and your data secure. Discover how ThreatLocker's least privilege approach can safeguard your organization against known and unknown threats. Take the first step toward total peace of mind. Visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker today. It's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. Hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment, or you'll end up on the Kiss Cam with the head of HR. Yeah, you've probably seen that story. MCP is a model. It stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's basically a way that you can use to standardize. It's sort of an intermediary protocol that allows you to interact between your LLM and other components. So it's a way to standardize all your connections for AI so that the AI can access all your tools and all your data types and basically access everything on Earth. Call it, I don't know, Cthulhu's tentacles or something like that. So it's basically a way to build things on top of LLMs and allow them access to everything. So this story came from a blog entry from Gnostic, which was reporting on a study they did to locate exposed MCP servers on the internet. And they used Shodan and some other tools, but they mostly, I think, used Shodan. And they found 1,862 MCP servers that were exposed. So that's bad in and of itself. So then they chose 119 of these, and they didn't say in the blog post exactly why they chose 119. I don't know if that was one's, they acted like it was a sample. So that's like a 6.4% sample, which sounds kind of strange, like, hey, Bill, let's sample 6.4% of the population, but whatever. But that's not the point of the story. Every single one of those 119 servers that they sampled granted access to internal tool listings with no authentication. So, basically this thing was the AI intermediary was allowing people to access the AI as if they were local to it and all the tools that it had within it. And that sounds pretty bad. So basically their conclusion was that everyone, everywhere, all at once wants AI, and they want it now. I don't care. Get it up and running by Friday so I can tell the board that we have AI, or I will replace you with AI. And, and maybe, this is just kind of a crazy thing. And one day, and I have another story about this as well today, but I'm going to do it at the end. But, I don't know. Basically these things have no security, and they seem to be planning maybe to build security in later. But in the meantime, they've turned the whole thing loose, and it really gets a little bit problematic. So the point is, I guess, if I have a point, is you can read how they did all this in the blog post. And you can ask yourself, are you also doing this stuff? Are you exposing things like MCP with the plan to, secure it later in the meantime? So yeah, something, private VLAN, something, security testing, something, background checks, something, and all that stuff. All right. I'm always thinking about how dependent we are on what I would now start to call maybe a global mesh of all this networking. And it's getting worse all the time, where every app has APIs that have APIs and Augustus de Morgan. And, we talk about that all the time. And this is dependent on that, which is dependent on this other thing, which is dependent on that stuff over there. And I always just kind of keep imagining it somewhere there's a guy in New Jersey sitting in a room that's controlling it all. I think his name is Tim. He's kind of Italian, but he really likes fast food better and spent way too much money on a used Jeep. But this story was a lesson in just sort of foreshadowing what might go wrong. So on the 14th of July, 1.1.1.1 went down. Now that's 2606 colon 4700 colon 4700 colon 1111 for you modern types. But all of that is Cloudflare. And Cloudflare is a major provider of something that we don't think about much and don't often like to think about, and that is domain name service, DNS. Bind, or BND, as I usually call it, because I always called any kind of daemon something with a D on the end of it. You say the word and then the D, but Paul says bind. So, it's just one of those things Paul and I don't agree on. Berkeley Internet Name Daemon, or daemon if you're certain parties. But Cloudflare said this wasn't a hack. It wasn't malware, anything like that. It was a configuration change which occurred on the 6th of July, which linked the 1.1.1.1 resolver prefixes to some other service. And then when that change was implemented and an update was added to it on the 14th, it all went down. Now, it took down all of the addresses, so all the 1111s and 1001s and all those harder to read IPv6 addresses. Now, it was only down 34 minutes, just 34 minutes. But do you know how many DNS requests happen in 34 minutes? Well, so it's hard to tell. But in 2021, this was the stuff I could get references to. In 2021, their blog said they processed an average of 13.6 million DNS queries per second. They also said on their blog that they handled more than 200 billion requests per day in 2020, which was about 2.3 million per second. So I'm just going to use a lower number because it doesn't really matter. But in 34 minutes, that would mean they handled 4.7 billion requests. That's a lot of failures, right? So I think my point will be about this story is, what's your plan? So when something like this fails, do you understand your resiliency? Like, how do your systems interact with things like Cloudflare or Google? It doesn't matter. Pick a poison and think about it. I mean, does your system automatically roll over to 8888 and everything's fine? And what if 8888's down? And, and again, how far do we take this? But how integral are these services that you're now using in the cloud, you're now using across networking, and what are they going to do? Suddenly you can't look up your apartment address in Paris because the DNS is failing, or you need an Uber to take you to the airport because you couldn't figure out where your apartment was, so you just gave up, and now you can't get an Uber, or you're just trying to order some Sprudelwasser to be brought over to your, apartment. And, it's just, everything's getting so entangled, and it just seems like one day soon you are going to find out when something goes down. I mean, have a plan. Oh, and by the way, I asked ChatGPT for that number of DNS transactions, and it literally made something up. And then I said, that number, where did you get that number? And it said, oh, I don't have a citation for that. Yeah, be careful with those AIs. Now, for some reason, my invitation to the Pwn to Own event in Berlin must have gotten lost in the email, along with my private jet and white glove service that they were going to provide me. But they did at Pwn to Own Berlin find 4 ESxi 0 days. So at least something was accomplished, even if I wasn't there. 3 of those had severity flaws of 9.3 and would allow programs running in a virtual machine to execute commands on the host. And that's just like one of my, nightmares. Like, some people, wake up screaming because they imagined they were trying to do their comprehensive exams naked in front of a room full of professors. Whereas I'm like, hey, that's okay by me, but don't tell me my ESxi. I mean, I always thought this has got to be pretty secure, right? And then I think we found out that it's not. The fourth flaw that they found wasn't as severe. It was called an information disclosure, so probably not that bad. But if you think patching network infrastructure devices is hard, wait till you have to patch a Type 1 hypervisor. I mean, it's just about as much fun as sending that message out on the mainframe that said, "We will be going down for service in 12 minutes. Save your work or be forever damned to the void," and listening to all the groans. All those sweaty users out in the pit that you just stuck it to at 15 minutes to midnight when all their assignments are due. Yeah, should have done your homework in advance, suckers. But regardless, don't be naive and think that Type 1 hypervisor is invulnerable and it doesn't need a patching plan and it doesn't need regular patches, because they patch them all the time. I mean, these things are terrifying when you think about all the people and services that you have running, sitting in that virtualization world. I mean, I have a Proxmox server that has 20 servers on it. I haven't even started adding student stuff yet. It also, it needs patching, it needs backups, it needs food, water, vet visits, all that stuff. So this is a good article to get you thinking about your hypervisors as part of your infrastructure and what you need to do to keep them running. And speaking of patches and infrastructure, Cisco issued a patch on the 16th for a severity 10 flaw in the Cisco Identity Services Engine and Cisco ISE PIC. And another patch had just been released 3 weeks ago for another severity 10 vulnerability. Both of these were specific APIs in the Cisco ISE product that would allow, and listen to this, it would allow an unauthenticated remote attacker. I mean, that's like the worst kind of attacker, right? Like, okay, so it's a 10-year-old kid in Virginia, and they could execute arbitrary code on the operating system of your networking device as root. Yeah. I mean, that's about as bad as it gets, right? I mean, you're not going to see anything much worse than that. And so just to justify all my whining, though, if those devices that had these 10 severity items in them were on private VLANs, the threat would pretty much be mitigated from square one, because despite the fact that the threat is there, if nobody could get to the private VLAN because it's not exposed to the public, even internal public, you wouldn't have this problem. But if you have that device and it's sitting there open to the world, open to your employees, some clown that didn't get that raise will figure this out. They'll read the story and go, ooh, I could have some revenge here. So again, it's time to review your infrastructure patching plan. How long does it take you to patch these things because this time keeps falling. The time between when a bug is found and it's patched and it's public knowledge and there are publicly available exploits for it is really short now. So if your patching plan is like year 2 of 3, we begin to review, and that sounds ridiculous, but there are people that are that far behind. So put these things on private VLANs and work on your patching plans, or somebody will eventually get you, because look at these bugs. I mean, this is not minor. I hate QR codes. I have hated QR codes ever since it came out. I mean, I get it, right? It's convenient. You can slap a sticker on a pole of a ski lift that, says, hey, and see if people come to your site. Scan here to access our menu. Scan here to access the list of drugs available here at Mr. Party. Scan here to reserve your place on the booze cruise. Scan here to see the wide range of leather masks available. And you scan it, right? I mean, you walk in and you're going to Dumpling King and you scan them, but what did you scan? I don't know. It's just some mystery dot that you scanned. Was it really the leather mask menu at Biff's Leather Warehouse, or was it something else? This article is an attack that basically allowed someone to bypass the FIDO keys by using QR codes and a bunch of other tactics. And I mean, it wasn't the fault of the QR code per se. It was because the people scanning the QR codes don't really know what's going on. And so you can easily put up all kinds of fake stuff. Now, you've probably seen this. You're logging onto one machine and it offers you a passcode and says, would you like to do this via your phone? And then that puts up a QR code on the screen so you can authenticate on the other device. Well, okay. And this is a new approach that works pretty well, and we all use it. But this person, the attacker, set up a fake Okta page that relayed all the credentials to the legitimate Okta portal and then ends up sending the victim a phishing page to link to okta.login-request.com, which is not an actual Okta site. And that was sent by email. But they sent a cross-device authentication request. So Okta generated a QR code so that you could validate. And then that was handed back to the fake page and displayed to the victim. So the victim then provided the scan that authenticated the fake pages. And that gave the attacker access to their entire whatever they have access to via Okta. And it's not Okta's fault. It's just how this all works. I mean, that's sophisticated, but it does show you when you train people to scan things that they can't read. It's just like saying, if the green light goes on, push the button. No, don't worry about what it does. If the green light goes on, push the button. Well, what are they supposed to do? You tell them, oh yeah, this is how we operate. Now, apparently this can be prevented by requiring Bluetooth connections to use this approach, but that's a whole different can of worms, right? Because now everybody has to turn on Bluetooth on their devices and on their whatever computer they're using. Every machine has to have Bluetooth, or you're carrying around a Bluetooth USB stick or something. I don't know. Maybe it's time for YubiKeys again, or get an identity chip in your hand, or a QR code tattooed on your forehead. It only hurts for a few minutes. Now, I do love the smell of legacy equipment in the morning. Ozone, body odor, burning coffee. And is that Rich? Oh, that is Rich. He's here somewhere. Yeah, I can tell. But we all have legacy equipment, right? I mean, I got shelves full of legacy equipment. And sometimes we love it, and sometimes we can't afford to replace it, and sometimes it just can't be replaced because it's the only Fortran 4 machine compiler that we still have. And, there's that code that runs the line printers that makes the paychecks. Maybe in the next budget cycle. Well, Microsoft has extended security updates for Exchange 2016, 2019, and Skype for Business 2015 and 2019 for 6 more months. So these are all like end of support products, and they're saying that they were supposed to end in October. Now, of course, you have to pay for this. And this story was a bit snarky, but according to Microsoft, you may need more time to upgrade. So they're willing to sell you an extended warranty. But like many such extended warranties, they don't guarantee they will actually make any updates. And it will be your responsibility to find these patches because they won't be in Windows Update. And did I say they may not make any updates because they're not promising to do that? So they basically did say that this period of support will not be extended beyond April 2026. So you better start planning an upgrade path at this point. Because and hey, for those of you that are still running Server 2012, yeah, well, good luck with that. But I'll keep my PDP 11 plugged in. All right. Salt Typhoon is everywhere these days. The Chinese state-backed unit this week compromised the United States Army National Guard. Yeah. Now, this was a report that said that, and it was from NBC News, that said they obtained material that would allow them to target other government entities crucial to the United States national security. And the Department of Defense, and if the Department of Defense says anything, that's pretty scary because, the fact that they're admitting it and makes me wonder what else went on. But the Department of Defense said that Salt Typhoon accessed the network between March and December of 2024. So they didn't actually crack it this week, but this is when the story came out. And they were able to exfiltrate config information. Have you ever seen a Cisco conf? Guess what? Half the time the root password's in there in plain text, and that's probably the password for every single thing on the whole company. But they were able to exfiltrate config information and data that was sent and received from other networks in every single United States state and at least 4 U.S. territories. Wow. And that's what they admitted to. They also then went on and said that the data included network admin credentials and network diagrams. The Department of Defense also said that in 2023 and 2024, Salt Typhoon stole 1,462 network configuration files for roughly 70 U.S. government and critical infrastructure entities from 12 different sectors by exploiting known vulnerabilities in Cisco and Palo Alto that, of course, had not been patched. And, of course, these devices were exposed to the public internet. Great. This makes you feel great about everything. I mean, it's very damaging, although I bet those network diagrams are all out of date. At least I always got them. Well, I will be in Las Vegas for Black Hat, but the real spirit of Las Vegas is found in Aaran Elvis Leyland. Hi, Aaron.
Hey Doug, how's it going? I actually had in the start of my notes there on mic because production muted me because I'm too noisy just being alive.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to get straight into this because it's a big one. So, quick caveat before I get into it. Everything that I'm saying is purely based on open source media reporting and my own cyber experience. No classified insights, no insider leaks, just publicly available news, mostly from the mainstream media. Obviously, along with my personal observations, the story's moving fast and I attribute no blame personally. Do your own research, form your own views. Okay, back into it because I could totally do a 3-hour show on this. So, as we know, Kiss Cam media coverage is going wild and distracting us from witnessing what just might be, probably is, the most devastating data breach in modern memory, maybe history. Executed not by China or ransomware gangs, although they wish, but by accident by the UK Ministry of Defence. A spreadsheet emailed directly out of Special Forces HQ with zero encryption, zero DLP, zero classification control, but nearly 19,000 names of Afghan allies and their families, people who risked everything, and then alongside over 100 British nationals that includes MI6 officers, Special Air Service, SAS personnel, senior MOD staff listed as referees for them Afghan wannabe refugees. Some are calling it a kill list. This landed on Facebook, at least part of it did anyway. This wasn't a tragic error, it was structural negligence. No resilience engineering, no threat modeling, no controls around sensitive data movement. The MOD didn't just drop the ball, they never knew where the ball was. The system reportedly had no outbound data triggers, no threshold alarms, no peer reviews. One individual could and did push highly sensitive personal data externally via standard email without detection or containment. This is not risk management. This is risk normalization. It gets worse. They had warning shots. In 2021, Afghan Relocations and Assistance Policy, ARAP, email addresses were leaked to 250 interpreters. That should have prompted an audit, changes, something, but nothing happened. The individual responsible for this leak in 2022, apparently, so they say, thought they sent out 150 names. I don't know what was happening here anyway. Although not realizing that the spreadsheet held thousands. Astonishingly, reports suggest he wasn't fired, just transferred. If true, beyond comprehension. Really scary. So, when the spreadsheet, or part of it, as I read in some articles, surfaced on Facebook in 2023, obviously panic set in. MOD reportedly offered the person who posted it a UK visa to take it down. There you go. You know how to get a UK visa now, but please don't do it. Reports are that they are now living in the UK. But what about the others on list? It's not policy, it's crisis mode. Quietly under what is apparently called Operation Rubific, the UK then scrambled charter jets to extract over 23,000 people to the UK with estimated costs, low end, sort of obviously government type estimated costs from what I've read, between 850 million and 7 billion pounds. According to sources, 7 billion pounds. Parliament, apparently barely informed, instead a vague reference to efficiency and processing. It's like, look, read stuff on this. There's a hell of a lot more than I'm talking about on here because some of it would frighten you into action. And I know that frightening boards into action is not our professional style, but it might frighten you into action. My mum says clouds and silver linings, but it's hard to take one from this frightening event. So, operational exposure was catastrophic. MI6, which, if you don't know, is similar to your CIA and the USS, Special Forces, a Royal Marine Major General, all now linked directly to Afghan sources. This is how networks get destroyed. Yet still, it's reported no MOD accountability, detection failure was total, no content inspection, no attachment control, no scale or pattern alerting. This was not only predictable, but it was definitely preventable. Red teams flag this annually. Yet, look, spreadsheets are remaining underestimated threats. There are reports, although I cannot say if they are directly connected, that around 17 Afghan lists have been killed since the list come out, with some people in the media actually stating and definitely alluding maybe to a direct connection. It's very sad. It truly hurts. It truly, this is filled me with emotion. Forget blaming human error. The real questions are, which controls failed? What culture breeds such complacency? Where was the peer oversight or basic integrity checks? Nowhere, according to public reporting. The MOD's information security culture seems broken. This is the cost when cybersecurity is a bolt-on rather than core operational strategy. Leadership indifferent to data as a critical asset. Policy substituting technical guardrails, legal containment instead of genuine remediation. Look, if private companies face similar breaches, they go bankrupt, vendors would lose contracts, hostile actors triggering red alerts and acting on them. But for a civil service breach, it's court orders and silence. Are the hard questions being asked about systematic exposure? What other ticking time bombs are waiting in Outlook, outboxes, and SharePoint links? Totally reminds me of the data leak of the names and addresses, and much, much worse, if you remember this story, from the police service of Northern Ireland. Very scary. It's a human element here. But what have we learned? Minimum standards here glaringly absent. No apparent inline DLP inspection alerting on outbound PII. No peer verification for sensitive data movement. No separation of duties. No stringent controls on Excel storage. It's like, why was it not held in an audited system? Policy alone isn't control. Technical barriers matter. It really does. It riles me, this story. We are told that Afghan partner data was treated as second tier until MI6 and SAS names surfaced, then panic and a super injunction. This may hint at a troubling prioritization of whose lives and data truly matter. This breach wasn't just data loss, it's forced strategic shifts. A covert multi-billion-pound aircraft executed, not from planning but desperation. If that doesn't force you to rethink your entire risk model, nothing will. Nothing will. Here's the real test. If your most sensitive data landed on your worst adversary today, would your systems even notice? The UK MOD reportedly didn't. And now the consequences are financial, reputational, and tragically human. I put a bit at the end that I put in because I read the story just before I come on air. From a different angle, Hamish de Breton Gordon, now there's an English name for you, in a recent piece in the Telegraph, also linked in the show notes, underscores the grim reality further. Along with thousands of Afghans, he goes into 100 UK Special Forces and SIS MI6 names were leaked, amplifying operational risks. He highlights the urgency of ensuring our security services remain operational, agreed, reinforcing that blame, while inedible, is tomorrow's conversation. Yes, the immediate focus must be on safeguarding those exposed and rebuilding capabilities for the critical work of keeping this country safe. Yes, to all of that, Hamish. If you take anything away from this, what looks like the biggest breach by magnitudes that I remember, then it's time to get on top of your controls, not just your policy. This week, have a long think about what you would do in this situation and how you can make impact. That's this week to stop it happening. A very sad day for everybody involved, and my heart really, truly does go out on this one. Anybody who was able to stop this and the PSNI link, leak. This is your week. This is your week to make sure it never happens again. Thank you for listening. Now back to Dr. Doug in the studio, whose thoughts I always want to hear. Dr. Doug.
Well, I'm not quite as serious as Aaron. I never have those really hardcore stories like that. Wow, that's an intense story.
Right? Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's important. It's probably more important than anything I said all day. So yeah, thank you. Well, speaking of that kind of stuff, though, history is always filled with examples of people doing things that were both good and bad, and sometimes, well, likely to end all life as we know it. I mean, so I don't know if it's an urban legend or it's true or whatever, but the story always went that Oppenheimer was warned by a group of scientists from the University of Chicago that the Trinity test, where they set off the first known nuclear weapon, could very possibly, and it wasn't just them saying, "Yeah, I feel bad about it." It was like mathematical that it could possibly cause the detonation of the atmosphere of the Earth, killing us all. And and Oppenheimer was like, "No, we're doing it anyway." So, so-called doctors were injecting people with seawater in the 19th century, that had cholera, because they were like, they're going to die anyway. We might as well see what happens. And, some of that led to saline treatments and all this kind of stuff. William Keene, if you never heard of William Keene, you will now. William Keene was a really interesting guy. He just decided to give brain surgery a go back in 1888. Why not? There's like something in there. We got to get it out. He did. He removed the first known brain tumor in the 19th century. He was a surgeon. Back when being a surgeon meant just, I'm going for it. But anyway, all progress is fraught with peril. The Future of Life Institute is the name of this company, FLI. Sounds kind of pretentious, I guess, but they said that on their list called the AI Safety Index, none of the firms they could put on there scored higher than a D for existential safety planning, whatever that is. It sounds bad, right? But it's existential dread. But they're right? We talk about the theoretical stage of AI development that's called AGI. This is what everybody's trying to achieve, which stands for artificial general intelligence. It is a bit scary. What if you do create something that you can no longer understand? AIs start coding new AIs, which start coding even newer AIs, and pretty soon humans are obsolete, and Augustus de Morgan is obsolete, and all that. From their current behavior, like human behavior towards each other and animals, humans are pretty reprehensible, as we've seen in many stories, and you can just go out on the street and watch. So what happens when ChatGPT 10.0 edition decides to clean up this mess? The report said, quote, "The industry is fundamentally unprepared for its own stated goals, and companies claim they will achieve AGI within a decade, but no one scored very well on the Existential Safety Planning Index." So I think we're in the injecting seawater stage of AI, with people just saying, why the hell not? And money. Everybody wants it. Let's give it to them. And, cholera patients were dying. So maybe the whole planet is on the verge of going up like a celluloid collar. So maybe the why the hell not is going to be the message of the day. Yeah. On that note, that is the news. I will be doing interviews at Black Hat. So if you're still interested, I think we might have a couple left. So let us know. Thanks, Aaron. And we will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.